to India and Ireland, round Africa and back again. We don't really need to know just where we'll go. Maybe Canada, then to Brazil, then through the Alpine foothills. All I really want to know is, can we go? Oh baby, can we go? Round and around the globe.
Welcome to Take Me With You, episode 39. I'm Ryan,
And I'm Cheryl. We are two well-traveled people who want to go everywhere.
but that's not going to happen. So instead, we'll travel vicariously by inviting a guest to share their unique travel stories with us.
This summer, we've been doing a series of travel tips episodes, and that's been super fun. We have 3 more of those planned that we're going to end the summer with. But in the meantime, we're going to go back to our regular format. Today, we're talking to Alyse. Alyse is a video journalist in Seattle and apparently is a big lover of travel. So you're in the right place. Welcome, Alyse.
Thanks, guys.
We're so excited to
I'm
have
excited to be
you.
here.
You're already like offhandedly mentioning future trips to Tokyo and things like that. So I'm pretty excited to talk to you about travel. Have you gotten to travel a lot for work, or has it been mainly personal, or a combination?
It's definitely a combination, but pretty much every trip I've taken in the last 5 years is either for school or work. So I like the tax deduction.
Nice. Yeah, that's really cool. Are you able to kind of tack on some fun things on your own while you take those trips for work?
Pretty
or
much
school?
always, at least saving a couple of days at the end or the beginning just for myself. Yeah.
And when you say for yourself, is that like literally just you by yourself, or do you get together with other people?
I often go with friends. I think last year in Denver I did take a day to myself to go hiking, but mostly with other people.
Nice.
Very nice. Yay.
Okay, so we've got a set of questions that we ask all of our guests. So the first question, Alyse, is why do you travel?
So I grew up pretty enclosed into a group of people that are very much like myself, all raised the same way with the same belief system and the same views of the world. And as I got older, I got more curious about what else is out there, who else is out there, and what their world is like. And as I moved into college, that really caught fire, and I was able to see a lot of new things and places and meet a lot of people. Even just moving across the country from the Northwest to the South, that was a big, big change for me.
Sure.
What were some of the cultural differences that you experienced when moving from the Northwest to the South?
Life is a lot slower, so I got used to that. I think things like I grew up going to private school, and I was at a state school in Kentucky. Just people come from different financial backgrounds, different community backgrounds. I grew up near the city, and some of my friends don't even go by their city name. They call it their county because there's no cities. They're that small.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Oh, wow.
That's interesting. That's really different from what we're used
Yeah.
to up here.
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting.
So, Alyse, what type of traveler are you?
I think not like Ryan, where you're very orderly and you have plans. I'm very hectic. I'm a type A person, so my packing, I have got that down to pat. I bring everything I need, only what I need. It can last me anywhere from 2 days to 2 months. But as far as
Wow.
in one bag. But as far as what
Nice.
Nice.
me as a person, I don't really plan well. I kind of like to see how things go while I'm there. I'll loosely know what I want to do. I'll loosely know 1 or 2 things that I need to do while I'm in a place. But other than that, I let things kind of go with the flow.
Have you ever had to travel with people that are very plan oriented? And how did that go?
Yes. I think it depends. I mean, I have traveled with people who like very much want to see these museums and do these things while they're in a specific place. And I'm flexible with that, especially if someone already knows what's going on and is educated on it. And like, I'm always down to go with the flow. When things are maybe like less planned than like if there's no one who's a planner in my trip, I go a little crazy because I'm not good at the planning, but I rely on it. Ryan, traveling with you is one of these things where like, you know that there's going to be someone who has an idea of where we're going and what we're doing. And we're not just going to go to the beach.
So
right, we're not just going to go sit at the beach. Like, we're going to go see a museum or a cathedral or who knows.
Okay, so you want some decisions to be made. You just don't want to be the one that makes them.
I want someone who cares more about the pre-planning than me to make the plan, but I appreciate the plan every time.
I think you are a new type of traveler for us then. I don't know. Actually, no, I think maybe we had one guest on who went to Baja. What was her name, Ryan?
Ashley.
Ashley. Our guest Ashley, I think, was similar. Other than that, I found that at least in the interviews we've done that it's a little more rare to be laid back enough that you don't want to make the decisions yourself, but also wanting the things to happen enough that you want someone to make the decisions. I feel like a lot of people, they're like, no, don't plan for me because who knows how I'm going to feel that day? What if I find a cool thing and we already have tickets for something else? I'm going to be sad, or you get the like, I don't want to miss out on these things that I want to see, so I'm going to plan them. But I think you are a more rare combination where you're like, no, I want to do the cool things. I'm up for like those decisions already being made, but please, dear God, don't have me be the one that does it.
Yes.
That's really interesting. Wow. Yeah. You must be fun to travel with then, because you're just kind of like, yeah, let's go for it.
Depending if I'm with the right group, yes.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So you two, Ryan and Alyse, you guys have traveled on 2 trips together?
2.5.
3.
Our trips conjoined midway one time.
That's very cool. Yeah. That's really neat. And then we gotta hear about these packing tips of yours. We're always down to talk packing. So is there anything that you're like, hey, you don't even need to pack this thing, this is how you pack light? Or is there anything that you're like, oh, I always do this, or I never do this?
I think it depends on the climate you're going to. It depends on when you're going somewhere, but you almost never need more than like one pair of pants. Particularly in the summer, unless you're going to be in a country that you have to wear pants in. I oftentimes only bring a week's worth of clothes. And then if I'm going somewhere that has laundry services, I wash them consistently. If not, I wash my own clothes in the sink after I wear them and I hang dry them. And it just nice. I've learned that saving that space in my suitcase is so much better than having a lot of clothing to be able to choose from. Yeah, just like places I've traveled, a lot of the times you can't have a rolling suitcase, so you're carrying everything on your back, and sometimes you're hiking with what you have, and so you have to be able to figure out like what is more essential, having 3 different sweatshirts so that I look good in pictures and not look like a scrub, or having like my camera gear and being able to climb a mountain with it.
Yeah.
That's some good prioritizing to do.
So it sounds like you became an efficient packer from necessity and from experience.
There were many times where I just felt like a doofus running for trains while carrying a big bag and a backpack and a tripod and just like everything all in my arms and just exhausted, just running from one platform to the other when I could have just had a backpack, just one backpack. Like I went to Denver this weekend and I had just this one carry-on backpack and that's all. There was a sleeping bag, all of my clothes, my toothbrush.
Nice. Yes. Well done.
Yeah, that's not a large
No.
backpack at all.
It's
That's
the
like
one you can fit under the seat.
like a yeah.
That's the best. You know what's nice
for you.
about some sort of suitcase or backpack that just fits under the seat is that then you don't have to be part of the whole crew of people trying desperately to be the first ones on the plane or like jumping up the second their boarding group loads, because it's like the whole purpose for that is the overhead space. And if you don't need the overhead space, then it's kind of like, I'm going to get on the plane whenever it happens and enjoying this time when I'm not on the airplane right now. And so
Yeah.
there's something pretty magical about that.
Totally.
Yep. I will say, though, at least in my experience, I've been traveling long enough that the whole like overhead space being a premium thing is still relatively recent in my mind. People always stood up immediately and got in line to get on the plane. That's
Yeah.
Even before then. I'm like, I just don't. People, you bought a seat. You've already checked in. No one else is going to sit in your seat.
Yeah.
It's still going to be there. It doesn't matter how quickly you get in that plane. And for a lot of like the international flights, and Alyse, you've probably been on even longer flights
Don't
than I
want to be
have.
on the plane until the last minute.
No, it's like,
Nope.
exactly. Like,
Yeah.
why do I want to go on the plane and sit when I'm going to be there for a minimum of like 8 more hours?
Yeah, that's so true. I think you're right. I definitely have witnessed that before, that whole like overhead space thing. I feel like though the desperation has only increased as
Sure.
that's been a thing. And so it's just, I feel like just the amount where people like freak out about getting on the plane so early is kind of like everyone needs to chill. So,
Yes.
but also airlines kind of did it to themselves by
Oh, for
charging for
sure.
checked bags. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So technically, Alyse, we still have one more question, which you can say that you've already answered, but maybe you actually have a different one that you would like to talk about. But the last question is, what is your number one travel tip?
Ooh. Have health insurance when you come home. I don't know.
I feel like there might be a story behind
It depends
that.
where you're going, of course, but I've gotten sick a few times after trips, work trips and things, and it's always helpful to just, I don't know, like, you can't prevent it most of the time. So you just have to make sure that you have the care available when you're like, I'm still dying 2 weeks after this trip ended. I should probably go to urgent care. I don't know. Maybe that's probably a terrible travel trip. I'm trying to think if there's a better, more like palatable,
Oh, no, that's probably a very good travel
palatable
tip.
one.
I mean, medical things are important when people
Yeah.
travel too. That doesn't go
Yeah, for
away.
sure.
So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that I don't want to scare people.
I mean,
I think it's okay.
You've done a lot of travel. Do you get sick most of the time or
Not
only
in
on rare
Europe.
occasions?
I get sick everywhere else.
everywhere but Europe. Europe is the magical
It's
land
just
where people who are gluten-free don't have to be gluten-free, and where apparently no one
Really?
gets sick.
is that
There
a
you
thing?
go.
The gluten doesn't bother people.
Not as much. Yeah, people tend to be okay
My
with that
travel
in Europe.
tip, honestly, would be, especially, I would say particularly for, like, Europe, I see a lot of people take those, like, Euro passes, like the rail pass and, like, all those things. I would say skip that. Do your research on what the local company is, and you're going to save a lot of money if you're traveling between countries and you're just using, like, local companies. Like, whatever the Czech version of Amtrak is, you can go from, like, Poland to Prague for, like, $15 in business class. That's a lot cheaper than paying for rail passes from the US. So just check out your
Interesting.
local travel options and try to go with those.
So including local trains, but then also
And
like
planes,
buses
everything.
and things like that.
Yeah.
I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And planes.
Yeah, I feel like I've noticed that where oftentimes if I'm looking up train tickets in like somewhere in Europe compared to like just getting the pass, it just doesn't even compare. The individual tickets have been so much cheaper. So that's kind of interesting.
Nice. That's a good tip. Well, okay. So speaking of, why don't you go ahead and start telling us about the trip you're gonna
Sure.
be sharing
So I
today?
think what I'm going to do is I'm going to fuse 2 trips a little bit, and then just that way you get the highlights of both. So in 2016, in November 2016, and then in January 2017, 2018, sorry, I went to Pakistan. But to all my American friends, I just put like a Minnesota accent over it. It comes out naturally. But I went to Pakistan first to film a friend's wedding. It was a triple wedding. So my friend Ayaz, his sister, and his brother all got married. They all were arranged marriages in the same week.
Wait, so not only was it 3 weddings, but they're all family
it was
members
siblings.
that were all getting
all
married
3
at
of
the
the
same
children
time.
in this family. The dad just decided it was financially cheaper to do it all at once.
Sure.
And the kids all live in different places. So the sister lived in Pakistan at the time. The one brother was living in the U.S. and the other brother was living in Germany. So it's just an easy way to get everyone together at one time. Yeah. So it was a triple wedding, and then that trip, it was my friend Lauren and I were going, and we were there for just under 2 weeks, and we had to come back pretty much immediately because we had final exams, but it's 2 days there, 2 days back, and so we had
2 days of travel.
So we had 10 days
there.
in country, and most of that was the actual wedding events, shopping for the wedding days. I think it was 5 days of ceremonies. And then at the end, we did a 2-day trip up to Murray in the foothills of the Himalayas. So we drove up to Murray.
Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So let's hear about what was the wedding like?
So the wedding, it was a lot. It was very overwhelming. We were very jet lagged. It's about a 12-hour time difference. So the first few days.
So about as far away as you can get.
Yeah.
Wow.
We were, let's see, I'm trying to figure out. It's been a while. So the beginning of the wedding is when you get married, officially, you sign the paperwork and you get married. So the couple isn't in the same room yet. The bride is at her home with her family, and all the men from the groom's family come over, and they all sign this paperwork, the marriage certificate. And in the U.S., it's this big. In Pakistan, it's a square yard of paper. I don't know if that's an accurate term.
Wow.
But, and then, so they sign all of that, and then all the men get together, get the groom, and go to the mosque. And they all, hear a sermon, and then the imam, talks to the groom, and then they all sign it. All the men in the family sign the marriage certificate. And typically, especially in Pakistan, women aren't allowed in that ceremony. But because my friend Lauren and I were filming the wedding, we're filming this for this family, they really rallied for us to be there, and we were the first women allowed in this mosque for the ceremony. In that community. So I don't know about the whole country, but in that specific community, which was really, really great to be there. And it was really cool because it was a long-time friend. We had known him for about 4 years at that point. So it was sweet. And then I guess I should move into the further parts of the ceremony. So that was day 1. And then everyone goes and has a house party. Day 2, there's, it's called Mehendi, and it's where it's kind of like the bachelorette. You're not quite, the bride hasn't been sent home with the groom's family yet. So they all gather in a big dining hall and have a big dinner, and there's dancing, and it's for the friends. So it's not the huge extended family community event. It's just friends. So there were only a couple hundred people there.
That's just friends. It's a couple hundred people.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess this is for 3 different people. Then,
this
right?
one was, This was for, mostly for one couple, because the other 2, I think, had already had theirs a year before, because sometimes it happens before the wedding. So then the next day, we had, I forget what it's called, but it's where the bride gets sent off with the groom. So they had 2 separate ones of these ceremonies for 2 of the daughters, or for the two sons. So it's where you go and you have dinner. It's the same thing as the day before and the day before that. And you're in this big wedding hall and there's like 1,000 people. But then you load up the bride into the car. Like the family walks her out of the hall and loads her into the groom's family's car. And everyone's just bawling. And then they send her off and she like belongs to the new family, essentially. And in a long time ago, they used to say that when you go to be with your husband's family, you don't return unless you've died. like that you've now spent your whole life with them. Your life is no longer with this family before, but that's not really the case anymore. Families are nice to each other, and women aren't property. Third day. So the third day was that event where like everyone's crying, but they're still having dinner. And then the fourth day was the same thing, but for a different, it was for their daughter. So we went up to the mountains. So we went from Lahore and we road tripped up to Islamabad. Islamabad is the capital city of Pakistan. And it's like very much like Washington, D.C. It looks like Washington, D.C. It's just very clean and very like modern and boring. And so we went to this wedding hall, and the wedding halls are ridiculous. This is a thing that is interesting, is the wedding halls are all themed and they look like these giant mansions. Like you feel like you've gone into like a Hollywood set. You know how when you drive through Universal Studios, there's like the different big buildings and they're all different styles of like, you know, like there's like a Tuscan mansion and like, I don't know, like an old colonial mansion, and you can pick where you want your wedding to be. And in Islamabad, they'd have these big red letters, like it was like a shopping mall, like
neon
store
sign
name
type things.
Yeah, like a giant neon sign, and it would say like the title of the building, like the theme of the building that you were going into, and you'd walk in, and these halls are crazy. So I put, also side note, I sent you guys photos of I emailed you photos of a few different things, mostly of the second trip. But the first trip, there's one photo where the couple is standing together, and you can see just how massive these halls are. But the last event was the Valima, I believe, and we were all back in Lahore, and it's just this big dinner where everyone comes back together after they've been sent away to their new families, and there were 1,000 people at this dinner.
Wow.
1,000 people.
And that wasn't big, apparently.
That wasn't big?
Wow.
No.
How often is any individual going to a wedding if that's like...
Often.
Wow.
Because
like
this
half
last
of your
trip when I
social
went...
plans is just weddings then?
It truly is. And you
Really?
spend, like... You spend so much of your money on just clothing because you can't be seen in the same outfit twice.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
You can't, like, that's
It's
a
like-
cultural thing?
Maybe it's just in like the society, the higher society that I was at the wedding for. They like no one ever wore the same thing twice, and they'd all comment on like, "Oh, I saw you wear that last season," or like, I don't know.
Wow.
Which compared to the U.S., it's cheaper. Like you can go to the mall and get a really fancy outfit for $60, and in the U.S., that's like $600. So.
Wow. Oh my goodness. That's so interesting.
That was...
What did you
and then
wear?
we went... Huh? Oh, see, okay, so that's a thing is I'm going back and I like already know that I need to get things custom made. Like I know what stores to go to, I know who to order from, and then I have a tailor that I can already like contact and have him prepare them for me for when I arrive.
So a tailor in Pakistan.
In Pakistan. It's my friend's family's tailor. So it's just somebody who like knows my measurements and like can help me with whatever.
Wow.
But there's a place called Liberty Market, and it's like a shopping mall. Like, so if you compare like a high-end mall, like that has like Louis Vuitton or whatever, that'd be like Bellevue Square in the Seattle area. There's another mall, which I think both of you know, called Crossroads Mall.
Yep.
And like Liberty Market is like the equivalent of like going to Old Navy at Crossroads Mall. And
Okay.
as a foreigner, like, cool, the clothes still look great. I have no idea, like, what I'm wearing. It still looks good, but maybe not as quality as
Sure.
if I went to, like, the fancy mall.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
This is not
Yeah.
designer that we're talking about then.
Right. And no one's
Gotcha.
expecting me to show up in design or anything.
Well, there you go.
'Cause I don't know where I
Low
am.
expectations.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even know what it's called, but the outfits were great. And I still own them and I wear them when I go there.
Wow. Oh, man. So, and then you went back because why?
Okay, so I graduated from college. I interned in DC, and then I had nothing to do with my life after January. So I moved back to Seattle and was there for about 3 weeks before I was like, I'm going to go to Pakistan. I just need to get away from Seattle's gray weather. So in February, I went, and I did not really have plans. There were specific things I wanted to do, but I just wanted to see my friends from college. So I lived with my friend's family in Lahore. I lived with 2 different families. I just switched between the houses. And it was a really perfect time because a lot of my friends who lived in the U.S. were at home to visit their families. So it was like a perfect convergence of everyone was in town all at the same time. Yeah, so I didn't have anything particular, but because the wedding was so hectic and I didn't see much of the country outside of that, this was a perfect opportunity to really just kind of like explore from the ground level and see what life is like there. So we went to the border. We went to Wagah border, which is the border between India and Pakistan. And every day they have like a flag lowering ceremony, which is crazy because India and Pakistan are related to each other kind of like how the U.S. and North Korea are.
Oh.
So it'd be like if
They
you,
share a border.
you know, right. So it'd be almost like if like you could stand at the border of North Korea from the U.S. and like wave at each other and like watch them do like a military parade
Wow.
against each other almost. So it's one of the craziest things I've ever seen. And my friend who's from Pakistan had also never been before, so that was really amazing to see and talk about what that was like. We did that. We went to a polo match, a horse polo match, which was interesting. And my friends were very bored because apparently they've done that before, but I thought it was great. It was like soccer, but with horses.
That's very English. Yeah?
Yeah. So that's a big part of culture there. And a lot of people there have British accents because Pakistan was part of the Indian subcontinent, which was colonized by Britain until the 1940s.
Okay.
When they became their own country. Yes. And there was a big war.
A big war with England? Or a big war like that was India and Pakistan?
Yeah. So it was all Britain. Like all British owned, the Indian subcontinent. Britain divided it into 3 countries. There was West Pakistan, India, and East Pakistan, which is now Bangladesh. Anyways, there was a big war. A lot of people died. Like 1 million people died. But they became their own countries. Forget where I was going with that. But it's crazy. And so you still see like British culture. Like that's the reason that they do black tea, like chai is black English breakfast tea. And they gained that from the English. And the way they speak is British English. The way they spell is British English. So.
That's really interesting. So why are you going back and when?
Oh, I'm going back in November this year for my friend Danny's wedding.
Another wedding.
Another wedding.
Party
That's
time.
going to be the reason I go. Yes. So this last trip was probably the only time I'll go and not go to a wedding. And even when I was there, I was asked if I wanted to go to a wedding.
Oh.
They're like, hey, there's a wedding down the street, at the cowboy themed venue. So
Literally.
Wait,
friend's
literally
mom-
there is a cowboy themed one?
Oh, no.
Okay. I mean, you said there were a whole bunch of them, so I wasn't sure what all the
There
themes
are.
were.
I'll see if I can Google a photo or have someone take one. But it's ridiculous.
So it's almost like the internet came to life, and you just get to view all of these wedding venues in a row, and then like step into one by clicking on it. But actually, you're just stepping into it. Wow.
Truly. I mean, inside they all pretty much have the same like over grand design, but the outsides all look very different and spectacular.
Like
So the
real
themes
weddings.
don't So the themes don't carry through to the interior. They're just an exterior theme?
I think so. I mean, maybe vaguely, but there's a lot of like purple LED lights on like fabric hanging and flowers all over the place.
Oh boy. So I wonder
It's
if
like-
to the venue owners, their themes are very distinct, and then maybe to the untrained eye, it's kind of like, I don't know. You all look like purple LED lights to me.
Probably. Probably.
Wow, that's so interesting. Anything else you
Yeah.
want to share about your time in Pakistan?
Yeah. So, I mean, let's see. I wrote down a couple of things about like really sweet spots that I went to. So both trips I went to this place called Badshahi Masjid, which is was one of the biggest mosques in the world when it was built.
Wow.
And it's hundreds of years old. It's massive. And you what you do is you go up to it, you take your shoes off, you give them to a dude, and you get a little ticket because you can't wear your shoes inside. You have to like put on a headscarf. It's the only place you have to wear a headscarf is inside of mosques. And then you walk around barefoot, and it's like so warm on your feet because it's just been sitting in the sun. It's like this old red stone that's been sitting in the sun all day. And there's just these it's like one big fort sort of thing, like a big square, and then it's just all open courtyard in the middle. But on the sides, there's just these hallways with windows that look out over the city and this beautiful park. And they have their own version of the Eiffel Tower. It's called the Minar. I forget what it's called. The Minar. And it looks like an Eiffel Tower. You can't go in it. But it's just really, really pretty. There's one of a really old Sikh temple right there too. That's also gorgeous and you're not allowed to go into.
So
But,
what's the difference between a mosque and a Sikh temple?
So mosques are a part of the Islamic religion. And Sikh temple is part of the Sikh religion. And, I think anyone can go into a mosque as long as you have removed your shoes and you have a head covering. But no one can go into a Sikh temple unless they are Sikh or unless they have someone who can take them there. I know people who have gotten in, but I know I haven't been allowed in because I was with Muslim people, and Muslims aren't allowed into the Sikh temple. There's also Lahore Fort, which is in the same section of the city. It's old Lahore, and I also am not allowed there because I'm foreign.
Okay.
I'm not sure why, but I wasn't allowed both times I tried to go. But Badshahi Mosque is just this massive, it almost looks like a castle, but it's beautiful, and there's beautiful architecture. And it's really interesting when they do the prayer call. They do it from the minarets, which are the 4 pillars, towers at the corners of the mosque. And the prayer call is something that I've heard it in the US just in movies and stuff, but I had never heard it in real life. Yeah. And it's something that at first is really jarring. You're like, why is there a man singing? You're like, where is this coming from? Especially if you wake up at 5 a.m. The first time I woke up, I was like, is there karaoke? And my friend was like, Alyse, that's disrespectful. And I was like, I'm sorry. I didn't know. But once you get used to it, it's really interesting. And it's really beautiful from that area. I think probably they have better people with better voices maybe, but it's gorgeous. And then my friend and I had dinner. So Old Lahore there's a neighborhood right beside it that's, they're old brothels. They're not brothels anymore, but it's these old buildings that have been around for hundreds of years. And on the top floor of one of them, there's a restaurant called the Cuckoo's Den. And it's like a Pakistani barbecue restaurant, and you're literally on the roof. You have to take wooden steps up to this platform, looking over the whole city and over the mosque and everything. And it's the best restaurant I have ever been to
in the entire world.
In the world. Yeah.
Wow, I want to go there.
I was going to say, okay, Cheryl, add it to your list.
That's so cool. Yeah, I went to Morocco one time and I heard the singing throughout the day. And it was something that definitely took some adjusting. And it was also just so beautiful and interesting and just like so entirely different from our lives here. And so I think that was like just a really like unique experience. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something too that I found interesting was the prayer call. Like, yeah, you hear it everywhere there. We were up in the mountains and it was like sunset and there's just like a man singing it out over the mountains. And it's just like, it's wonderful for them that they can like have that. In the US, that's like because of, I guess, noise codes and stuff. Even in communities where they're heavily like Muslim, they're not allowed to do the prayer call in public, which fascinates me because I feel like being a Christian and being from the raising that I was and being so adamant about like being able to practice my faith and that being important to me. I can't imagine being in a place where like, I just have to be okay with being like losing that part of your life that's so integral to your daily life.
That's a good point. Yeah. That would be a big adjustment for people, it seems like. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was cool.
Wow.
So while you were there, I'm assuming you stayed with people, or did you stay in like a hotel?
Yes. So, if you ever go to Pakistan, the U.S. Embassy advises never to stay in hotels.
Oh, really?
Why?
It's a thing. It tends to be easier for petty crime to happen to you, and they're not always safe places to be. But I stayed with two separate families. Both of them were friends from college, and the first, when I went to the wedding, I stayed in my friend Sadaf's room, and during the height of the wedding, all of her bridesmaids and some of her cousins were also staying in the room. So there were 9 of us in one bedroom.
Ooh.
It was a party. But otherwise, I had my own little bed in like other spaces, different people's rooms and homes. But always with friends and family. And then if we traveled, we would stay like in a family friend's home or wherever we went. We like had a place that like was known. Even if it was like a military hotel, like the military takes care of their so like their officers always like have places to stay on vacation, and there's just like a lot of benefits. Yeah, there's a lot of benefits to being in the military there. I think because it used to be like Pakistan switches between being like bureaucratic and then like a military dictatorship. And the two families that I spent time with were the son of a bureaucrat and then the son of a military colonel. So I kind of saw the best of both worlds.
Interesting.
But it's not really a place you can just like go to without people that you know.
Yeah. And so I know you were there, like the first time you were there definitely just for a wedding, and then the second time you were there just to get away from the Seattle gray. But like living in the home of someone in a country that is just culturally so different than what like you were describing, you know, growing up here where everyone's kind of the same and then being very different. So what was that experience like? And I know that, you know, you were friends with at least one of the people that you were staying with already, so that part was known. But like being in somebody else's home and being in their family, I feel like it's a very different perspective than just visiting a country.
Yes, and that was something that was very hard, especially when I was there for the longer trip. I'm not used to other people taking care of me and doing things for me without there being some kind of trade-off. And a lot of families there have servants. It's just like, if you're, I don't know, like if you're a woman and you're a visitor, you don't carry your own bag, you don't open your own door, you let other people do things for you. They had a servant who would, if I woke up before everybody else, she would have to then get up and like make me breakfast, and I didn't like that, I think, coming from this very independent background. And so I had her teach me. I was just like, okay, here we'll compromise. And I had her teach me how to make breakfast, like how to make paratha, it's like naan, but it's like a oily bread for that you like eat with an egg. So I had her teach me, and then she didn't have to help me anymore. She could just hang out with me if she wanted to. Okay. But things like that were something that I had to get used to because I felt like I was a burden. Especially being there for a month. I don't know. And I think I didn't realize no one saw me as that, but it definitely was a hard thing to get used to.
Culturally, for you, you were a burden. Culturally, for them, you were a guest who should be treated like a guest there.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's really interesting. Huh. That's always an interesting piece of embracing culture when it involves being treated better than you think you should be treated.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, and it's not like I couldn't help. Like, I can't pay them back. I can't. There's nothing I could do to trade it off. So, just,
And those are the sorts of experiences. I mean, I obviously have not had that particular experience, but it sounds like, similar ones that I've had where it highlights for me those elements of our own culture that we don't even necessarily recognize are part of our culture. Right?
Yeah.
Like that, like what you're describing is that, like you even said it, like that individuality and that independence that are so deeply ingrained in our culture here in the United States. And we just assume that that's what everybody wants and that's what everybody is like. And then you go and you have a very different experience and you realize, oh, even these things for what we call, respectful or rude, or like you said, like being a burden, but that's not the way it's experienced universally around the world.
yeah.
That's so
Yeah,
interesting.
exactly.
I was talking with a woman who lives in the Seattle area who runs an exchange student program for high schoolers from all over the world to come to the Seattle area and stay with a family for a year. And so she has gotten to witness some really fascinating cultural differences between kids. It's usually about 50 of them from 30 plus different countries. And she said that the teenagers who come from countries where even just your regular middle class family will have servants in the home, it can be really tough for them coming to the United States and like having to pick up after themselves or different things like that. Where like, and I could see how a family then could perceive that as lazy or, like, I don't know, just like selfish or different things like that, when in reality it's like, yeah, that's absolutely just a cultural thing, is even how you perceive those behaviors,
Yeah. And even like my guy friends in college, that were Pakistani, because they grew up with people who cooked for them, like a cook, the family cook. They just like they only ate, I think, frozen chicken burgers for like 4 years.
Because that's all they knew how to make.
That and French toast. They did know how to make French toast.
I mean,
French
what else do you
toast
really
in
need?
Pakistan. I mean, I've never had better French toast than in Pakistan. It's like a
Really?
thing. Yeah.
Interesting.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Interesting.
When we were in the mountains after my friend's wedding, we had this meal. So resort season is like the fall, but November is like winter. They don't want to go out. It's like 50 degrees. It's too cold for them. So we're up in the mountains. And we had to call ahead to this hotel, and they were like, yeah, of course, like, come for lunch. And so they set up this like table for us out on this veranda overlooking the mountains, and we had French toast on this veranda.
Oh,
It
Wow.
was the fanciest French toast meal I've ever had.
Wow. Do they do any toppings on this French toast?
Not at that place. And the oil, whatever oil they use, I think they use desi ghee. And it's yellow, bright yellow. So the French toast was bright yellow.
Oh,
what's
wow.
desi ghee?
Desi ghee is like, so instead of using like butter or like coconut oil or olive oil, they use desi ghee. And it's like this specific cooking oil. You can buy it at the grocery store now. It's known, supposedly, I don't know if this is actually true, it won't get you fat. You won't get fat eating it, but it's super high in cholesterol. And so people have like terrible heart problems in Pakistan and India because desi ghee is just so bad for you, but they use so much oil.
Wow, that's interesting.
It's kind of like in the South how they use a lot of butter. Just use all the desi ghee.
But it was
Wow.
really good.
Very good.
Wow. Oh, man.
All right,
Food.
Cheryl, add it to your list.
Adding it to the list. Oh.
I couldn't tell you what that hotel was called. I think you have to be in the military, but I got a guy. if you need to go.
I gotta start networking.
I know a guy.
That's the real reason we're doing this podcast, so we can get all the
Networking.
travel connections.
Yep. Oh,
There you go.
absolutely.
I've got one place I've got connections. Why do you think I
Oh,
go
man.
back?
I understand that. That is Spain for me, so I get it. Oh man, well thank you so much for sharing with us about these 2 trips. So we have a question for you based on the title of our podcast, Take Me With You. If you could take us with you to just one thing on both of these whole trips, what would it be and why?
I would absolutely take you to Old Lahore for the dinner on top of that roof. The Cuckoo's Den was something I had wanted to do the first time that I had gone to Pakistan, and getting to go the second time, it didn't disappoint at all. It was like, I think you have to walk up all of the steps, like 10 or 12 flights of stairs to get to the top. The elevator's too scary. I didn't want to try. So, because the building is like hundreds of years old. It's the oldest building I've seen in a long time.
Wow.
And we hiked to the top and ate dinner, and it was just so beautiful. So that I would take anyone there.
Awesome. I love it. Let's go.
All right, sign me up.
I'm in. And you might have already answered this, maybe not. We don't know. What's your next trip?
My next trip, I think, is Tokyo.
Nice.
I got asked yesterday. Well, I got asked to go yesterday.
Oh, just yesterday.
So you're still processing this.
It's in October, so it's one of those things where something else could come up between now and then.
That's true.
It could not happen. Who knows?
Yeah.
That's
And
true.
I think we were talking before the show started. You have not been to Tokyo yet, is that correct?
I have not.
That's cool.
So
Very excited.
where is Tokyo on your I want to go there continuum?
Ryan, I
Like,
thought
think-
you were going to ask where is Tokyo, and it was
Where is Tokyo?
Okay, all right, bro.
Somewhere not near Alaska. My list is very much places that are harder to get to. Like, my list very much is Iran, North Korea. I
Yeah.
want to go to those places. I went to Cuba last year.
Is
Yeah.
that why you're a video journalist?
Yeah. I like to see things that I have this philosophy that I feel like by seeing parts of the world that people deem unworthy of travel, you'll find things about them that are valuable and amazing and worth seeing. Because there's always good people in every place, and there's always something that's really interesting and different than where you're from.
Yeah.
And most people travel to see something different from where they're from.
You should needlepoint that on a pillow, by the way.
I should sell it at Hobby Lobby on a sign.
Yep.
What are your travel plans?
Oh, boy. Well, actually, our next question is, do you have any travel questions for us?
Oh,
So if you want to ask
What
that, you're welcome
timing.
to, or something else.
I mean, I think a lot of going to Pakistan was something I was afraid to do before I went. So I guess if there's a place that you're a little scared to go to but really interested in, what is it and why?
Ooh. That's an interesting question.
Oh.
That could even be Kansas.
It could even
I'm
be
scared of
Kansas.
Kansas.
That's a good
A
point.
little afraid to go to.
You may have morbid curiosity towards.
Does the moon count?
Yeah.
Ryan, do you want to go to the moon?
I mean, no, but yes.
What if you got a phone call and they were like, we will put you on the next flight to the moon?
Yeah, see, actually, I had some students ask me this question today in class, actually. And it was like, would you go? And I was like, I think so. Because, to be on the moon would be amazing,
Yeah.
right? And, if someone else is paying for it. But, the trip up there, and when I say up there, I don't even necessarily mean, from Earth to the moon. I just mean from the surface of the Earth up to low Earth orbit. That part freaks me out.
Yeah. Could they just knock you out?
I don't know. Maybe.
Why don't they
Oh, I'm
just knock
looking-
people out?
Well,
Oh, it takes about the same amount of time to travel to the moon as it does to travel to Pakistan. So there you go. I Googled it. It says it takes 3 days for a spacecraft to reach the moon.
yeah.
And to get to Pakistan, it usually takes about 50 hours.
So it's basically the same thing. Going to
Yeah.
the moon and
Maybe
going
it's
to
on
Pakistan.
the moon. Maybe
And,
I've
you
been
know,
to the
you
moon.
might have
Maybe you've been to
more
the moon.
leg room on the spaceship than you would on a regular plane.
I don't know about
You'd float
that.
around.
So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if the moon counts, but that might be the place that I have I'm curious and I think I would want to go, but it would also freak me out to go.
I think that's your answer.
Why?
I think
Why
that's
would it freak
solid.
you out?
Oh, just the whole idea of like being on a rocket that is exploding behind you. Like, that's a little scary. I get motion sick. And I feel like you could get motion sick taking off.
You did.
And then there's just the whole like, hey, if I puncture this wall, I could get sucked out into space and die. I mean, like,
But that would happen on an airplane.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
That is true.
You know, there's a SpaceX office in Redmond, Washington. You could always go talk to them about your fears
There
and
you go.
concerns.
I could.
There you
Well,
go.
and Blue Origin, which is Jeff Bezos' company, he's the CEO of Amazon, and they're also based around here somewhere. I mean, Amazon, I know, but like Blue Origin also has an office here. Like, they're the ones who I think is it the end of this year, the end of 2019? I think they are planning to do the first like commercial tourist trip into technical space. And I say technically
Right.
it's
Wow.
space. So it's basically they're going to go they do it on there's like an airplane that has like another little like jet underneath it. And so you fly up in the airplane and get really, really high. And then they release the jet that's underneath the airplane. And then it shoots its like jet engine so it can go even higher. And then it actually gets up into technically where you've like, there's all of these different definitions for where the edge of the Earth's atmosphere is, because technically there's no edge. It just kind of gets thinner and thinner and thinner. But I want to say, is it the Kármán line, I think is what it's called, at a particular height. Anyway, it's going to go above that point where you can basically experience weightlessness, or more technically microgravity, for, I don't know, like 8 minutes or something like that, and then come back down. And I think they're planning for that first flight to be by the end of 2019, I think.
So you know how
Wow.
you took your class to the Galapagos? I don't know if podcast listeners know that.
They do.
They do.
Well,
I talked about
then
that.
think about 10 years from now while you're teaching and you're taking your students to the
To
moon.
Space, yeah.
We'll come back to this and we'll be
Oh
like,
my
told
gosh,
you.
you're going to be
There
like
you
Miss
go.
Frizzle.
Oh my gosh, if I could have a magic school bus, that'd be amazing.
Wow. Wow.
Okay, Cheryl. Apparently I'm going to the moon and or space. What's your spot?
Well, I can't beat you because I'm
That's
pretty
okay.
sure I would say no if I were offered a trip to the moon. Like,
Oh,
that's
really?
just- yeah, I think so. I think I'm good.
Just too much.
Yeah, if I could exchange it for other forms of airfare that involve the Earth's atmosphere, though, I mean, I would go with that. But I think so. Okay, I have an answer, and of course, it's like a bit of a mixed answer because it's me. But I really want to go to Antarctica.
Oh, yeah.
I am
You're
not
afraid of it?
No, I'm I'm not afraid to go to Antarctica, except for every once in a while I have the thought to myself of, should I be afraid? Like, I don't really like being cold very much, and I know that they like give you the proper jacket and everything, but like, and I think I'm fine on boats, but it's one of those things where I'm like, that's going to be a big trip, and like, I think
Yeah.
it's also then I think I'm going to have, I mean, it costs so much and it's such like a big time commitment that I think I'm going to have a lot of pressure on like, this has to be amazing too. And so I'm like, it better be amazing. And what if, well, or I don't know, like what if I don't know. I'm just, you know what I'm afraid of? I'm afraid of not seeing a penguin, actually. That's maybe my biggest fear is like, I love
Yep.
penguins. I have a penguin tattoo. I want to go and meet the penguins. And like, what if they're not there? What if I get cold? Or like, what if I do get seasick? That is kind of, those are some choppy waves down there. I have been
Yeah.
advised to pick a bigger boat for that. So yeah, I don't know. It's more like I don't normally have fear, and then I wonder like, should I have like a healthy fear? of going to Antarctica. So I don't know, but it feels like a pretty standardized trip that happens these days. So we're probably fine.
I definitely let me go with you because Antarctica is definitely on my list of places I want to go. Oh yeah,
man, it would be so cool.
He'd be able to point out
fun
things,
if
too.
we did get like a group, like I don't know, it'd have to be like at least 10 years from now for savings and everything.
Oh, for
but
sure.
It'd be a fun group trip because you have so much boat time too that it'd be like let's bust out the board games, you know. So
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
It'd be a good guided tour. Like that's a trip that I couldn't plan myself. Because I would be like, look at this ice.
Cruises. The cruises plan it and they know what's up. So
yeah,
that's true.
I mean, I would love to somehow magically get some sort of connection to not just like go to Antarctica like on a cruise, but somehow get to go like, and I don't remember what it's called, but like to one of the science stations that's on Antarctica and like talk to scientists and researchers. Like that would be the ultimate.
Would you do the like work there for 6 months thing?
Ooh, I'm not so sure I could work there for 6 months for several reasons. One, I don't think that research is really my thing. Like, I don't think I would, because I would have to like be doing research in order to justify being there for that long. And two, that's just a really long time to be really that cold.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that where there's like that facility where they have frozen samples of a bunch of stuff? Like seeds and stuff.
Oh no, that's that's in like northern Norway. I actually just saw the name of that one again. Here, let me pull it up. Slavabad or something. I'm definitely saying it wrong. I'm butchering the name.
That's where I'm afraid to go.
It's Svalbard. I believe that's
super
it.
fake.
Nope, it's not. I'm looking at it at Google right now. It's like it's its own like islandy thing north of Norway, like parallel to the northern part of Greenland.
Wow.
Yeah.
If that gives you any idea. It's
That
like
looked really cool too.
Yeah,
because all the buildings, all the houses are like different colors.
Cool.
Yeah.
It looks cool. I would go there. Oh yeah, the facility is this crazy thing. Like, is it built out of the mountain?
Mm-hmm. It's built into the
It
side.
looks like it's straight out of like Star Wars or something.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah, and they keep it. They do. They have like it's like a I don't know, like a save the earth in case of major disaster emergency, like the ultimate like prepper, right? Because they have seeds of I don't know if it's every plant on the earth, but as many as they can, right?
Yeah,
and like
it's supposed to be like the Noah's Ark of
yeah,
plant life.
yeah. So like if stuff gets wiped out, we could potentially regrow stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tangent, but cool tangent.
Okay, so I guess that's my cue to bring things back in then. We've got one final segment. We're going to do Wish You Were Here. So for this part of the podcast, each of the three of us is going to share an attraction, a spot, a cool thing that we've been to, that we've seen in all of our travels. And you can think of it kind of like a postcard where it's like, hey, wish you were here. And it's just like one little snippet of these travels of this really cool spot or place that we've been and seen and kind of share that with everybody. So Alyse, what do you have for your wish you were here?
So a couple years ago, I interned in the Czech Republic, but I had a week off in the middle of the summer, and I went up to Copenhagen to stay with my friend Bettina from college. And inside of Copenhagen, there's this little like neighborhood. It's part of Christianshavn, but it's called Freetown Christiana. So Freetown Christiana inside of Copenhagen. And it's this artist community. And it kind of feels like you're walking into Neverland. You go through this like small gate door, and then you're in this like huge, like formerly industrial neighborhood that's just all the buildings are covered in these beautiful paintings. Like if you Google Freetown Christiana,
I'm doing it
you'll
right
get
now.
a lot
This
of
looks ridiculous.
Yeah, and a little weird side tidbit that you don't have to put in if you want. But when we were there, it was still so marijuana's illegal there, but they have like this open market that's like looks like a farmer's market, but everyone's just selling marijuana, and they have scary face masks on, but it's in the middle of all these colorful buildings. So that's like a side note. But we went there for lunch and to go see if we could find Rihanna, because she was performing that night and we didn't have tickets. We knew that she'd probably be in Freetown, Christiana. But it's like right along the river, and you can walk down these trails and stuff. And there's just these like crazy looking houses on the river that people like hand built in like the 70s. And it's one of the most interesting places I've ever been. So if I could take anyone anywhere, it is Freetown, Christiana.
Wow.
Cool.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. But not the weed market. Sorry.
Cheryl, what's your wish you were here?
So mine this week is the Ape Caves near Mount St. Helens in Washington.
Yes.
So Ryan, you've heard about the Ape Caves.
Yes, not only have I heard about the Ape Caves, I've been to Mount St. Helens once. I think it was in elementary school, and I've been to the outside of the Ape Caves, and we were gonna maybe go hike inside, but I was too afraid.
Oh.
Aw, buddy. Well,
Yep.
I think you should go. I've gone twice, and I would love to go again this summer, actually.
Okay.
It's very cool, and it's an experience that I'm like, yeah, I want to keep going back there. So, Ryan, would you like to explain how they were formed?
Well, I believe they are hollowed out lava tubes, I believe, from Mount St. Helens. And now, whether or not these particular lava tubes, I don't think they were from the most recent eruption. I don't think they're from the 1980 eruption.
They were
they're
from
older than that.
Yeah, long ago.
A lot older than that. And so lava tubes are basically, in general, underground spots that lava flows through. But as the ground around it is cooler, it kind of gets this kind of like crust, for lack of a better word, around the outside. And then as the lava is no longer connected to its magma chamber, then it kind of like flows out to wherever it is that it's flowing, and then it just leaves behind this empty kind of tube or cave. But they're not like, it's not like it's perfectly circular or anything, right, Cheryl?
Yeah, no, it's not perfectly circular. And then, I mean, also there have been like some, I don't know if avalanches are the right word in this context or not, but there are like big piles of rocks and stuff, cave-ins. Not total cave-ins because there are spots to get around them, but it's the longest continuous lava tubes in the United States. And so that's fun that it kind of keeps going for a little while. And it's an absolutely a doable day trip from Seattle, which is really fun. Like you can drive there, hike it, and drive home that night, no problem. And so there are actually two directions you can go when you get there. You go down this staircase, and you instantly notice that it's way colder down there. So super fun to go to in the summer, also because it's open more in the summer and not snowy there in the summer. But it's kind of nice if you go on a hot day, because I think it's like 50 degrees down there. So it's just kind of like, I went one time with my siblings, and the first time I went, and one of my brothers-in-law was like, oh, yeah, it's going to be really cold. We really need to layer up. And then it was just like, oh, no, this just kind of feels nice, you know. And so, and you're walking, so it's fine. But you go to the right when you first go in, and that's one is a dead end in about 3/4 of a mile, and then you just turn around and come back, and it's pretty flat. So that is, even if you're not into hiking or bouldering or anything like that, I mean, you're going to want your headlamp, certainly, because it's a cave, so it's pitch black in there, but you can just go and walk it, and it's fairly flat ground. So I like to go on that one first, and then you go to the one on the left, and that's like bouldering. There's about 5, it was described somewhere online as house-sized piles of rocks, which is very funny to compare anything to the size of a house, because houses are different sizes. So I don't super see how that's helpful. But yeah, there's just these really, really big piles of rocks. I'd say probably the size of like 2-story houses. And it was my first time doing that. And so it was so fun because it's doable. It's totally doable. And also I felt very successful at the end of it. And so that was fun. Just be like, oh, I'm a capable person.
So is that one not a turnaround then? Like
no,
you go down and
so
come
that
back?
one, there's a hole at the end in the ceiling.
Oh.
And there's a ladder that you climb up, and then you climb like out of the earth back
cool.
into the sunshiny day. And then it's just like green grass and flowers and birds all around it. And so it's this very fun contrast to like live through moments apart from each other. And at one point in that side, there's an 8-foot lava fall that you have to climb up. And it has a rope on it, so that's good because otherwise I would super fail at that because climbing up things is like not my strength by any means. And I'm saying this to say that if I can do it, so can you. So yeah, it's definitely bring a headlamp and like a spare flashlight, I would say, and bring a buddy or two. But it's, oh man, it's super fun. I totally want to go back. And they're called the Ape Caves because of Bigfoot, so that's exciting too. So
Did you see Bigfoot while you were there?
no, but you know, someday. So
The caves are pretty dark.
yeah. Yes, they're very dark. So he could have been there, you know.
Yeah.
Just
I'll
not
be
announced
watching
himself.
from the corner.
How busy have they been when
So-
you've been there?
Both times I went were on Saturdays, so that's a pretty good read. Like the first time I went, the parking lot was full, and then we realized it was like the last Saturday was going to be open for the season. Like it was in September, you know, and so but even so, we were not like constantly running into people in the caves. You know, it
Okay.
didn't seem like there were like voices everywhere and like people and stuff. There's occasionally like if you're around other hikers, you kind of figure out who's faster, and it is maybe a bit more awkward at points than like on a normal hiking trail when somebody's faster and it's like a momentary thing where they pass you. And this is more like their group is also going down these rocks and you're going down these rocks and it's all black. But that's fine. And so I would say for the most part, like most of my time, both times I've gone there, I was just with my group and we didn't see or hear anybody else. And so
Okay.
that was kind of nice.
Because so part of me, one of the things that I find fascinating, and this is probably as a teacher, right, like science teacher and then just teacher in general, people don't, it's a very common misunderstanding that pitch black is a real thing, right? Like that if you turn off the lights, your eyes will never actually adjust. Because almost all the time, our experiences, there's a little bit of light. And so
Yeah.
people think, oh, if I just wait a little bit longer, I'll be able to see. But if you've never been in something completely pitch black, so like if there's no one else around you, and if you're with your group and you could, all of you turn off your lamps and actually experience what pitch black is actually like that can be really, profound is too extreme of a word, but memorable.
Uncomfortable.
Yeah. And it can definitely be uncomfortable. That's a great word, Alyse, right? Because like if you've never really been that in something that black, it can feel oppressive sometimes.
And then, yeah, it's also like can be really quiet in there as well. So there's also like a sound element other than you'll hear like dripping, you know, or things like
Sure.
that because of like moisture dripping into puddles or, you know, different things like that. But the darkness was such a cool experience. And then I have this flashlight, and I don't know if I still own it, that's one of those like crazy, crazy powerful flashlights, you know, that like it says that if you have it on the like strobe feature that it's like supposed to be able to stun a person or whatever. And I don't know if you guys have heard of those flashlights. They're
have
nuts. And in that cave, Ryan, it looked like a lightsaber. So I would say if you bring one of those crazy cool powerful flashlights and it's in that pitch black, you can just see the straight stream of light coming out of it. And yeah, I was with a friend and he started playing with it like it was a lightsaber.
As you should.
Yeah. And so that was quite an exciting moment as well. So,
Cool.
So check out the Ape Caves.
Yeah.
Ryan, how about you?
Okay, so for me, this Wish You Were Here comes from my recent trip to South America. So when I went to the Galapagos Islands, before we went there, we spent some time in Ecuador on the mainland. And one of the things that we went to was a Jesuit church that I'm going to probably mispronounce, so I apologize. But it's Compañía de Jesús in Quito. And so I think I mentioned this before, maybe I didn't. One of the things that was cool for me about the trip to the Galapagos was going to Ecuador, because my very first international trip was to Quito, Ecuador. So it was really cool for me to go back to the first place I went to when I was in high school, and to be taking high school students to, somewhere else internationally, knowing that
that's magical.
Yeah, so that was cool for me, just personally. But I actually remember this church from when I was in 9th grade. So we walked in. I didn't remember from the outside, but then we walked in, and I was like, oh, yeah, I remember seeing this, because it is gold-plated around the entire interior of the entire church.
Oh.
Like, all of it.
Holy moly.
Yeah, literally.
That's where all the gold went.
That's where it all went. And there's no
El Dorado.
pictures allowed on the inside, although in Ecuador on Google you can, look stuff up and find stuff. But like, it really is beautiful, and it has a different feel than a lot of the churches and cathedrals like in Europe. It definitely is, more ornamental than what we typically have, especially on the West Coast here in the United States, in churches. Yeah. But it still has a little bit different feel. But it's beautiful. The gold it's not like shiny, like overwhelming, but you can definitely tell it's gold, and it's very intricate and ornate. And there, I believe, like underneath some of it, there was actually wood that was carved with all of these patterns and then overlain with gold. And they have like very different, I don't know what they're called, and I apologize for the people who might, but like I call them like alcoves, like different sections that kind of go off to the side or whatever, that have a theme. There's of course when you stand kind of in the middle portion and you look up, there's decorations on the ceiling, and there's different characters from the Bible and things that are up there, and it's a beautiful building that is totally worth going into and visiting if you have the chance. While we were there, our guide was telling us that, I don't remember how long ago, but it was actually like a large part of it actually caught on fire and burned. And so they had to recreate it. And when you're there, you can actually tell, because you can look and you can say, that's shinier and brighter than that part. And that's because that's the part that's more recent that they redid.
Oh, that makes sense.
After the fire. So, but they spent a lot of time doing, restorations and things like that. So that's my Wish You Were Here. It's a really, really cool, beautiful Jesuit church building in Quito.
I looked up pictures on Google. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Alyse, thank you so much for being on our podcast. We loved having you and hearing about a place that is less trafficked. That's so cool.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It's hard to pick out specific things to tell you about.
For sure. Yeah.
All right, so that's going to do it for this week's episode of Take Me With You. We would love if you would follow us on social media. We are at TMWY Podcast, Timwe Podcast, on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. We'll get some of Alyse's really cool pictures and post those on the account. And hopefully you can follow us and maybe tag us with some cool pictures from you of some of your travels.
You can also email us at timwepodcast@gmail.com. Send us your travel questions, stories, and more.
Yeah, and if you have any of those cool mores, you could also call us or text us about them. The number is 406-763-8699, or you can think of that as 406-POD-TIMWE. Please also remember to rate and review us on iTunes. That helps bring our episodes kind of up in the algorithm so that more people can find them and hear cool stories like Alyse's trips to Pakistan. Also, if you want to subscribe, that way you can get a notification every time we have a new episode, that would be cool. And then share this podcast. If you know someone else who likes travel or maybe is going somewhere cool and we've done an episode on it, go ahead and forward the episode on to them so that they can hear about it too.
Thank you, as always, to Beth Reed Miller for our awesome artwork. You can check her out at Beth Is Something. And thank you to Erica Corbin for the use of her song Round the Globe.
Yes, thank you very much. We could not do either of those two things ourselves.
That's true.
Yep. All right, so one final time, Alyse, thank you so much for being on the podcast this week.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And until next time, take me with you.
Take me with you.
Can we get a sailboat chasing down the sunset as we float round and round the globe? Salty air and balmy nights, guided only by the lights above, and a little love. Oh, the world is out there waiting to explore, and all our troubles here want them to be